A Spitfire tears over an English village, skimming over the treetops. Below, an old woman drops her basket in shock. Flight Lieutenant Geoff Wellum shouts, "Sorry if I frightened you, my love," grinning widely. 19 years old, barely 6 hours of solo time, and here he is, gripping the controls of a Supermarine Spitfire Mk I. With a top speed of 370 miles per hour, it feels like flying a wild animal. Then the radio crackles. German aircraft in the vicinity. Intercept immediately. He slams the throttle. His 1,000-horsepower Merlin engine screams. Geoff has no idea how green he is. A Messerschmitt Bf 109 gets the drop on him and plunges from the clouds behind him, cannon blazing. Shells rip past his canopy. Geoff yanks the stick all the way to the right. The Spitfire shudders into a savage turn. Over 6 Gs of force crush him. The engine overheats. Oil pressure is dropping. Vision tunneling. It's an impossible turn, but if any aircraft can handle it, it is the Spitfire. Incredibly, the 109 sticks to him like a shadow. The ground is rushing up at them as they spiral downward, each trying to outturn the other. First one to give in, black out, or break the turn will not see another day. Spark of genius. The Supermarine S6B screamed across the water at 340 miles per hour, shattering the calm of the 1931 Schneider Trophy competition. Standing at the edge of the course, Reginald Mitchell watched his creation with calculating eyes. Europe was racing toward a conflict unlike anything ever seen in human history, and unknowingly, Mitchell's mind was already imagining something far greater than a racing seaplane. In his mind, he saw the prototype of a warplane, one that would eventually save his nation. Mitchell had learned aircraft design in the brutal classroom of World War I. He watched fragile biplanes splinter and crash. Pilot safety obsessed him. Even while designing the fastest machines on Earth, he refused to sacrifice the pilot's survival. He would take this idea to the limit as he ventured into warplane design. A colleague who worked alongside Mitchell remarked, quote, "He picked winners. He hired people who could turn his visions into reality, then let them work." He surrounded himself with brilliant minds, structural engineers, aerodynamicists, and mathematicians, working toward Mitchell's ambitious goals. By 1934, Hitler's Germany had begun rearming, and Mitchell worried. RAF fighters struggled to hit 220 miles per hour. Britain lay vulnerable to air attack. When the Air Ministry requested proposals for a new fighter, Mitchell submitted his Type 224. It flopped spectacularly. The steam-cooled Rolls-Royce Griffin engine pushed it to just 230 miles per hour, slower than the Air Ministry's modest 250 miles per hour requirement. The ugly duckling lost the contract to the Gloucester Gladiator biplane. Mitchell shrugged off the failure. He'd already started designing something far better. Teaming with Rolls-Royce, which was developing the revolutionary Merlin Engine, Mitchell sketched a fighter from the ground up, disregarding several long-held conventions of aircraft design. At first a private gamble, the partnership soon won Air Ministry backing. Work on Prototype 300, as the model was called at the time, began in December 1934. Ambition was the name of the game. 8 guns instead of 4. Enclosed cockpit. Retractable wheels. Most radical of all, a stressed skin monocoque fuselage where the metal skin itself carried structural loads, eliminating heavy internal bracing. The power plant pushing this machine forward would be Rolls-Royce's PV-12 engine, soon to be renamed Merlin, pumping out 1,000 horsepower. However, raw power was not enough to create a legendary plane. It was the wing that defined Mitchell's genius. Working with aerodynamicist Beverly Shenstone, he created an elliptical wing shape that balanced a thin airfoil section with structural strength. Perfect for housing guns, fuel, and landing gear, while slicing efficiently through the air. On March 5, 1936, the prototype took flight from Eastleigh, Southampton. Vickers chief test pilot Joseph "Mutt" Summers took the sleek beast for a spin for the first time. The results were so impressive, Summers' first words as he climbed off the aircraft were, quote, "Don't touch anything." The aircraft had superb handling characteristics, particularly at high speeds and during maneuvers. It was considered exceptionally fast for the time, reaching speeds around 330 miles per hour, which was cutting-edge performance in 1936. However, subsequent flight testing revealed that there were several critical issues that needed revision. The undercarriage design was weak and required strengthening. The engine cooling system had to be refined, and the aircraft lost its magnificent handling at higher speeds. Mitchell knew he was onto something huge, but time was slipping away. Sir Robert McLean, the director of Vickers, Supermarine's parent company, asked to name the promising new model. He's said to have called his spirited daughter Anne a little Spitfire, a term used at the time to describe a fiery or hot-tempered person, especially a young woman. Not everyone liked it, including Mitchell, who preferred something more technical or intimidating. In fact, he proposed other names such as Shrew and Shrike, but Spitfire stuck as a perfect blend of fierceness and playfulness, capturing the spirit of the design. Mitchell worked against twin enemies, Nazi Germany and cancer. Pain ravaged him as he refined his fighter. Though the prototype hit 335 miles per hour, Mitchell demanded more. He knew war loomed, and every mile per hour might save British lives. He tweaked and improved the design until his body failed him. On June 11, 1937, Mitchell passed away at 42, never seeing his creation's finest hour. A draftsman remembered, quote, "We stopped drawing, looked at each other, said nothing, then picked up our pencils and got back to work." The best memorial would be finishing what Mitchell started. Forged in fire. Joe Smith inherited Mitchell's blueprint and the challenge of mass-producing a masterpiece. The Spitfire's flowing lines and complex geometry fought every attempt at mass production. The RAF wanted 8 Browning 303 machine guns, modified Colt 30s reconfigured for British ammunition. Smith arranged them 4 per wing, firing outside the propeller arc. No more clunky interrupter gear like the old biplanes needed. Workers sweated over the complex assembly. Castle Bromwich, a massive shadow factory run by Lord Nuffield, struggled to hit production targets. The design was simply not ideal for mass production. One former factory hand remembered, quote, "You needed a contortionist body to work on them. Skinny arms, flexible shoulders, reach into impossible spaces. They weren't built for manufacturing. They were built to fly like hell." On August 4th, 1938, the first Mark I, K9789, reached No. 19 Squadron at RAF Duxford. Early units carried just 4 guns, as Brownings were scarce. The stats impressed everyone. 31,900-foot ceiling, 315 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, 362 miles per hour top speed at 18,500 feet. It cruised at 210 miles per hour and flew 575 miles economically. Combat range hit 395 miles, including takeoff and 15 minutes of dogfighting. But it wasn't enough. Supermarine's engineers intended to constantly improve and upgrade what they recognized as a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece. Before the Spitfire's first victory, engineers had upgraded nearly everything. The cockpit bulged outward, the blister reinforcing the iconic silhouette with its elliptical wings. Armored glass replaced plastic windscreens. Steel plate shielded pilots from behind. Power pumps lowered the landing gear, and a practical tailwheel replaced the old skid. Merlin Mark III engines with improved air screw shafts supplanted the Mark II. 3-bladed metal propellers from de Havilland replaced wooden tube-leaders, dramatically improving climb rate. Young pilots fell hard for the machine. Peter Brown, a flying officer, recalled his first flight, quote, "The Merlin's roar hits your chest before your ears. The power pushes you back against the seat. It's like someone lit a rocket into your arse. Awesome, throaty, raw, but also trustworthy." Another pilot quipped, quote, "You strap on a Spitfire, it becomes part of you. Your body, only faster." The price of courage. On September 3, 1939, Britain declared war. RAF squadrons barely counted 350 Spitfires from the 2,000 ordered. The phony war had brought skepticism even from British airmen. One evening, test pilot Geoffrey Quill told air racer Alex Henshaw, quote, "This bloody war is going to fizzle out. Spitfire might never reach full production." Weeks later, Spitfires proved their worth. October 16, 1939, pilots from 602 and 603 squadrons shredded 2 German bombers over the Firth of Forth. First blood to Mitchell's fighter. May 1940 brought catastrophe. German forces crushed France and pinned 300,000 British troops against the Channel at Dunkirk. The men crouched on beaches under constant air attack, scanning the skies for salvation or death. Stuka dive bombers screamed downward, their sirens spreading terror. Soldiers threw themselves flat as bombs cratered the sand around them. Out of the gray skies, blurred shapes ripped through cloud cover, sun glinting on canopies. British fighters pounced on the Stukas, guns hammering. The distinctive elliptical wings and thundering Merlin engines announced that the Spitfire had arrived. Smoke columns from Dunkirk's burning oil tanks marked the battlefield from 20 miles away. One pilot remembered, quote, "We flew at 15,000 feet, seeing nothing. Then the sky filled with Messerschmitts, yellow noses, swastikas, black crosses, moving faster than anything we'd fought before." Hitler had inexplicably halted his tanks, believing Goering's Luftwaffe could finish the trapped British. Britain launched Operation Dynamo in response, a desperate evacuation using everything from destroyers to fishing boats. RAF Spitfires and Hurricanes threw themselves against overwhelming Luftwaffe numbers, buying minutes, hours, and days for the evacuation. On May 26th, No. 19 Squadron Spitfires joined the fight. Squadron leader Geoffrey Stevenson flew from RAF Duxford across the Channel into the Maelstrom, Merlin Engine thundering as he closed with German bombers targeting evacuation ships. One Luftwaffe pilot admitted afterward, quote, "They turned like nothing we'd seen. When a Spitfire pulled tight, we couldn't follow. They outturned us every time." The dogfights above Dunkirk exposed the strengths and weaknesses of both aircraft. The ME-109 packed heavier firepower, 2 20mm cannons plus machine guns against the Spitfire's 8 303s. But in turning fights, the currency of air combat, Spitfires reigned supreme. German pilots learned to dive away when cornered. Stevenson's first dogfight ended brutally. After downing a screaming Stuka, watching it spiral flaming into the Channel, he faced overwhelming odds. German fighters riddled his Spitfire. He crash-landed on Sanget Beach near Calais. German troops captured him, but his squadron's message resonated. The Luftwaffe alone couldn't crush the British at Dunkirk. Against all odds, Operation Dynamo succeeded. Over 338,000 troops escaped what Churchill called, quote, "a colossal military disaster." But the Spitfire had proven itself in combat. Britain's darkest hour. As France lay conquered, the Luftwaffe controlled airfields mere minutes from English shores. German air strength, 2,700 operational aircraft. British fighter strength, barely 650 planes, just 230 of them Spitfires. Nobody was feeling particularly optimistic about what was to come. One RAF pilot remembers, quote, "We knew they'd land here within weeks. Would we win? Christ, we'd be bloody lucky to survive." The Battle of Britain began. Hitler needed air superiority before launching Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of England. Radar stations along Britain's coast tracked incoming raids. Fighter commands scrambled squadrons in a desperate defense. Young pilots learned brutal lessons in seconds. One recalled, quote, "Check your 6 every 10 seconds. Always know where the sun is. Never fly straight for more than 20 seconds. Simple rules." The price for forgetting these rules was never coming home. Spitfires revealed quirks in combat that training never taught. The Merlin used a float-type carburetor affected by G-forces, unlike the fuel-injected Messerschmitts. When pushing into a dive to escape, the engine cut out. A veteran explained, quote, "We learned to half-roll, then dive instead." Fabric-covered ailerons created another problem. When chasing a 109 in a steep dive, you'd hit 400+ miles per hour. At that staggering rate, airflow deformed the fabric, controls went mushy, and pilots could not aim to save their lives. Despite these flaws, the Spitfire's turning ability and climb rate made it lethal in skilled hands. Fighter Command divided responsibilities. Hurricanes attacked bombers, and Spitfires tackled the fighter escorts. Orders for Spitfire pilots were always the same, quote, "Forget the bombers. Your job is the 109s. Leave everything else to the Hurries." Flight Lieutenant Geoff Wellum had a rather brutal introduction to what it meant to fight aboard a Spitfire. At just 18, he was among the youngest Spitfire pilots in the RAF. During September 1940, he went from a rookie to an experienced dogfighter in a single day. Geoff had only 6 hours of flight time solo, and flying one of the most powerful fighters in the world had his adrenaline pumping. He skimmed over the English countryside during a patrol mission. A cluster of cottages flashed beneath, smoke rising from one chimney. An old woman looked up as his fighter thundered past. Then came another village, a church tower, and Geoff leveled with the tower top. He accelerated, watching how the English countryside became a green blur. Climbing to 300 feet, he scanned for enemies. Nothing but lingering smoke trails high above. He spotted other Spitfires circling to land. After barely enough time for tea and a sandwich, Control sent him up again. A lone ME-109 had appeared on radar. Flying just above stall speed, Geoff turned as tightly as physics allowed. The 109 had surprised him from behind. His neck burned with shame. Never relax your vigilance. Rule 1. The 109 pilot matched his turn, impossibly tight. Through the enemy canopy, Geoff saw the dark mask covering the German's face. The Spitfire gained slightly in the turn, their wingtip seeming almost to touch. Geoff muttered, quote, "You won't do it, mate. We're on the limit as it is." Sweat poured as G-forces mounted. The warplanes hugged each other as they spiraled downwards. Each one fired sporadically when they believed they almost had the other one in their sights. The ground was coming in fast. Geoff had to do something about it. He rolled inverted, stick-centered, but banked, executing a half roll, followed by a vertical dive, throttle wide open. Then he rolled again. The ME-109 stayed with him, determined, skilled. Around they went, neither gaining the advantage. Geoff told himself, quote, "Keep turning, keep going." His glycol temperature was 105 degrees, and his oil pressure was 75 pounds. Acceptable, given how he'd punished the engine. The Spitfire shuddered near stall. He remembered his instructor saying, quote, "You can hold a Spitfire on this judder if you're good." His vision tunneled, nearly 6 Gs crushing him. He leaned forward, trying to get some blood into his brain and fighting the gray out. His legs felt leaden on the rudder pedals. The 109 fired again. Missed. Geoff noted mottled paint peeling from the German wing's leading edge, close enough to count rivets. Suddenly, it dawned on him. He was actually doing it. With 6 flight hours under his belt, he was actually facing off against a dreaded 109, and his training, as well as the power of the Spitfire, were not only responding well, they were slowly gaining an advantage. He felt confidence surge through him once again. The pilot was inside enemy territory, probably low on fuel, and panic increasing by the minute. Geoff had this. He banked harder. It was impossible for the German plane to follow. The maneuver was so drastic that Geoff missed his shot. His call was right. The German pilot was eager to escape, and he disengaged, heading for France. Geoff was about to pursue, knowing well he would probably not catch it before reaching the channel. But then he saw a better target. Looking down, Geoff spotted a Henkel 111 bomber racing toward Dungeness. Geoff smiled, then dived, gathering speed. Catching the bomber, Geoff eased back the throttle to steady his aim. Perfect position for a quarter attack on the bomber's port side. Tracers reached out. His guns hammered. He peppered the Henkel's fuselage and port engine. Black smoke erupted. Oil smoke. A good sign. The bomber's gunner fired back, punching 3 holes through Geoff's port wing. Pulling up alongside, Geoff fired again in controlled bursts. More hits on the engine and fuselage. As more and more smoke started trailing from the damaged hull, he remembered thinking, quote, "Must be hitting something vital." Then, the rear gunner stopped firing. Another good sign. The bomber lost height steadily, its port propeller barely turning. Geoff throttled back to avoid overshooting. Geoff fired a final burst. The Henkel descended, trailing smoke and flame. The young pilot set course for Biggin Hill. It had indeed been a good morning. Pilots like Wellum and the legless ace Douglas Bader, who claimed dozens of victories before his capture in 1941, became German nightmares. Though Hurricanes ultimately shot down more enemy aircraft during the Battle of Britain, the Spitfire captured Britain's imagination. The pilot remarked, quote, "People connected with it. That shape, those wings. They'd watch the contrails cross overhead. Their boys up there, fighting." Enduring spirit. Like Supermarine had promised, the Spitfire never stopped evolving. February 1941 brought the Mark V, armed with cannons alongside machine guns. When Focke-Wulf 190s arrived in 1942, leaving RAF pilots shell-shocked by their performance, Supermarine countered with the Mark IX, a 410-mile-per-hour monster of distilled British determination. Each Spitfire variant directly answered new German threats. As Me-109s and FW-190s improved, so did Mitchell's design. The fighter's versatility proved remarkable. Photo reconnaissance, carrier operations, fighter-bomber missions. The airframe adapted to everything. By war's end, Spitfire had spawned 24 distinct variants, with over 20,400 built. The last batch rolled out in June 1949. Engineers developed 4 wing types for different missions. The famous elliptical shape sometimes gave way to clipped square wingtips for better low-altitude maneuverability. A-type and B-type wings carried 8 Brownings, or a mixture of cannons and machine guns. C-type wings, the universal configuration, could hang 250-pound bombs. D-type wings were built for reconnaissance, and guns were sacrificed for extra fuel. Better engines marked each generation. The Mark V, with its uprated Merlin 4550 series, flew critical operations from Dieppe to D-Day, and even served with Soviet forces in 1943. The Mark VI, built for high-altitude interception, featured a pressurized cockpit and extended wingtips. The Mark X carried cameras instead of guns, with extended fuel capacity for long-range intelligence gathering. Major redesigns arrived with the Mark XIV, bubble canopy, larger tail fin, and stretched fuselage. The Mark XVI specialized in ground attack, sporting heavy 12 7mm machine guns. It hammered German positions during Operation Market Garden and the liberation of France. The final models, Marks 21 through 24, packed the monster Rolls-Royce Griffin engines, delivering over 2,400 horsepower. They featured teardrop canopies, massive tail fins, and contra-rotating propellers that eliminated torque problems on takeoff. Naval Spitfires, called Seafires, brought Mitchell's design to aircraft carriers. Beefed up for punishing carrier landings, they fought from North Africa to the Pacific, tangling with Japanese fighters. By 1945, the Spitfire had transformed. It weighed a third more than the original, climbed 10,000 feet higher, and flew 100 miles per hour faster. No other Allied fighter lasted from the war's first day to its last. It flew on until 1961, when Ireland's Air Corps finally retired its last examples. Mitchell's design could grow without compromising its essential character. Mitchell often said, quote, "If it looks good, it is good." The machine balanced beauty and lethality, a rare combination that pilots never forgot. Test pilot Alex Henshaw summed it up, quote, "Long after we're gone, people will recognize the Spitfire as the plane that saved Britain."